So good to see so many people here. I am just so excited. I think the fall campus recruiting session's always one of the most interesting, as people are usually in the heart of the campus recruiting season and can talk about what they're actually feeling. Having employers, students, and colleges in the same room is also really, really key. And that's why this quarter I'm joined by three just incredible individuals. First, Taylor, who is not in witness protection, but is having some Zoom issues. She is a sophomore business major at Stetson University, and is also a star of the women's soccer team there. Second, Rebecca, who is a former career services leader at schools like University of Wisconsin and Washington University in St. Louis, who currently works with a large number of colleges and universities on their strategies around career services. And finally, Flory from Northwestern Mutual, who is the lead program manager and the former university programs lead. So again, we're going to keep this informal. As I said, anyone should feel free to jump in with questions, comments, whatever. But we're going to start with you, Flory, if that's okay. I'd love to hear a little bit about your typical early career recruiting and programming cycle and how winter fits in.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me, Jeff. I appreciate being here. I will start with our typical recruiting cycle really ends with our previous recruiting cycle. So in August-ish, we're wrapping up our summer internship program. We typically have about 150 interns here in Milwaukee and Franklin. And we do a lot of evaluating of how the summer went to determine how many of those students will be returning, so that we can really figure out what our recruiting need is for the upcoming cycle. And then typically we head out to the universities for career fairs to just attract talent. And we're working to fill recs, hopefully by the end of the year. So the goal is always to fill our recs by December 31st. It never fails that January, February, March, we have some stragglers that come in, and we have some students that may renege on offers, and we have to do some more recruiting to get caught up to have our class of 150 filled again for the upcoming summer. So we have been working really hard to utilize a lot of our pipelines. We are a Milwaukee-centric organization, enterprise. So really focusing on the organizations in the area that attract college students so that we can tap into that as a resource as well during recruitment season.
So last minute requests from hiring managers, shocking. I'm sure none of the employers have ever felt that before. Rebecca, hearing what Flory shared, I mean, you're talking to so many colleges and universities. How does that align to what's top of mind for them right now?
Well, I know that they are hustling to provide support to folks like Flory and other employers, because this is such a busy time as they are really trying to help support that pipeline building to internships and job opportunities through the fall. Things will then slow down. Typically students start to get busy. The offers are going out for internships and jobs. So the peak career season is starting to fade. There's a little bit of a lull as campuses then begin to ramp up again in January, so that they can start that January, February recruiting cycle and really try to push hard to get as many students in roles as possible. So I think it's a very interesting time. I mean, this year we know that there are going to be some challenges with labor markets. I think with hiring, we know that career centers are really thinking about some of the new accountability metrics that are coming down from the federal government, where there are now new earnings thresholds by academic program. And so I think some of the schools that I'm working with are starting to think about, how do we pivot to really support some of these students who may not meet some of these new earnings thresholds that are outlined in that one big beautiful bill from the federal administration. So like some of our humanities majors, performing arts students, as well as majors in social work and psychology, right? Some of those earnings we know are at risk. And so I think some of the campuses are starting to think really strategically about how do we leverage the employers on campus? How can we build them into our student journey, our student preparation, so that we can really give these students the best go at finding the best opportunities out there.
I want to push on that last point though, because it's
Please.
interesting that it's interesting that they're so worried about the liberal arts and humanities students. I mean, given the volume of articles around AI and the importance of the skills that are often developed by humanities and liberal arts students, the communication, problem solving,
Sure.
how to learn, you would think those students would be in greater demand by employers right now.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of challenges that we're seeing, right? I think that there are fewer opportunities for all students across the board. So there are fewer internships and jobs available. I think because we're losing like 100,000 jobs a month to AI. So there are fewer opportunities, and those opportunities are becoming much more competitive. So while the humanities and liberal arts students may be more well prepared, they need to be able to understand those skills, articulate those skills really well. They have to have those applied experiences. And, you know, I see Flory nodding because, right, like you need students to have applied these things in more real world settings or employment settings so that you can better assess their readiness, and students can better articulate what they're able to do for you. And I think, you know, we're experiencing a little bit of a gap there. And I think career centers need to rally around this.
So Taylor, as a student who's a sophomore, what's the feeling on campus right now with you and your peers around job prospects and job market in general? Is that something you guys talk about, and anything you can share?
Yeah, for sure. I think just a general discussion, like all the time, is how is AI gonna, how is this gonna affect our opportunities, our experiences? And I think, especially within business, like there's so much, like especially like for me, like marketing, like data analytics. I think AI is obviously very present in those realms, and so I think that's always just kind of a common discussion. But obviously, people need jobs, people have skills that they want to use, and so I think it's just very up in the air, but it's definitely something that people are weary of. And I would definitely say that, like, for me, like I have a few friends that are, arts, they're in kind of that sector, and I don't hear them like too worried about it just because AI is maybe not as present in those areas. But I just think like for me in the business school, it's definitely a heavy discussion all the time. Just how does AI implement? How does kind of that whole realm kind of implement our opportunities. So.
Well, and with something Rebecca said about the schools trying to help students understand and communicate the skills. Again, not just can I use Excel or can I use HubSpot or whatever tactical or technical tool. It's also those core skills. I mean, Taylor, as a sophomore, can you talk about how you're engaging with the Career Center, if at all, and if those types of discussions are taking place?
Yeah, so at Stetson, we actually have a portal. It's called Hatter Jobs, and I'm sure like every school kind of has something similar to it. But it provides us with kind of on-campus jobs, internships, full-time opportunities. And you can also go into the portal, and they have employers come in once a week. You can sign up for kind of these sessions called Hatter Chats. You can go and network and kind of meet with employers and kind of like just get a feel for like their companies and their opportunities. And we also have the opportunity to get a bunch of free certifications through like Excel, Python, just kind of any Microsoft platform, which is like super beneficial because in the real world, obviously outside of school, like those can get pretty expensive. And so it's definitely a really cool opportunity. And then I guess kind of bouncing off what you were saying skills wise, I last semester actually completed this. It was a semester long professionalism training course, which I think is super unique and beneficial. And I think it just kind of gives you like, I don't know, one leg up going into the market just because it's kind of unique to say that, oh, like I already got professionalism training in like public speaking, networking, interpersonal communication. I think that's something that, like a computer can't teach you. And I think it definitely makes you stand out coming into the job market. I mean, I'm only a sophomore, and so I think that I continuing to use these skills now as I'm, getting internships and kind of just networking has been super beneficial for me. And so we did like expert-led seminars. We would have our professors and employers come in and speak to us. We did book club meetings with leadership books, and then we did a bunch of like networking sessions. And that's kind of what led me to actually like complete my micro internship with Johnson & Johnson through Parker Dewey, and kind of just inspired me. And so I think that like, regardless, there's so many skills that are just that you can't be taught in a computer. And I think like, for example, like the professionalism training was something that was super beneficial to me. And so I think that schools are kind of learning to adapt to it. And yes, it is like a big discussion, but I think that schools are finding their way around it, and people are realizing, no, like you still need all of these things, like real world experiences to kind of be successful in the job market.
Lori, students that come fully trained in professionalism, gut reaction.
Like get down on my knees and thank the heavens. Like, I think that a lot of the conversations that I have in our four walls, or however many walls we have here, is around the impact that remote learning, COVID has had on young people, and the things that we as professionals who have been in the industry for years and years assume that now that COVID's done, we're going right back to the way that things used to be. Understanding that while we're running an internship program and while we're preparing students to be great candidates for roles, we're also having to help them catch up in the spaces that they may have been a little behind in because they were shifted to remote learning during their high school years. So having those conversations are really important. Hearing from a student that they're getting a semester-long course in that is wildly appealing. I don't know how much hiring managers will be interested in that, but I think for us, from a programmatic standpoint, it alleviates a lot of the like, here's how you should email, and when the CEO says email me anytime, he doesn't actually mean email him anytime, right? Like the conversations that we have to have about professionalism with interns, that the hiring managers are assuming they already have. I think a class like that is wildly helpful.
Well, and the funny thing you said, which jumped out at me, is while the hiring manager may not be thinking about it, my presumption is they're still picking up the phone or emailing you that when the student doesn't have professionalism.
Yes.
Why did Jeff send me an email that looks like he was sending it to his buddy?
Right.
And you're
Lowercase i's, right? Like all of the emails like text. Just and that's something that we're pivoting into too, programmatically speaking, is providing managers, hiring managers with training, right? Providing hiring managers with how to deal with an intern, what to expect when they come in, what's important to an intern, because ultimately our goal is to make the summer internship experience so lovely that a student really wants to come back and work here, right? So
Rebecca, hearing these comments, and again, I see in the chat, and we're gonna get into some of these things, but the comment about the professionalism training and the fact that Taylor is a freshman or sophomore is engaging with her career center, and that's again ignoring the limitations as a student athlete on her schedule. I mean, gut reaction for the career centers on that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really fantastic opportunity, and not one that you hear about a lot, right? Like Flory, I don't know if you've heard of other schools doing that. I think with regard to the Career Center, I think some of the biggest challenges is it's like a Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We have small teams with usually larger student populations. Those ratios are sometimes shocking, like 1 to 1,000 students, 1 to 8,000 students. I've heard kind of everything in between. And so they're trying to figure out how to scale services in a way to meet all students' needs. And sometimes some of the biggest challenges students the career centers are facing is to just get students in the door. I mean, professionalism is like icing on the cake, but can we like get them in to figure out what it is that they want to do in a timely way so that they're ready to apply on time you know, with all of the experience, knowledge and preparation that they'd need to enter, say, Northwestern Mutual with a successful internship. And so I think that this is, the professionalism is in many ways an ideal, and it's just really hard, I think, for career centers to reach. And then I think, like, are there ways that we could do this online? Are there online course modules, self-service modules that we could prepare for students so that they can get some of this training before they head off into internships and jobs? So I think there are creative ways that folks can do that. It's just a matter of strategy and priority.
Well, and this, again, I don't want this to be a Parker Dewey advertisement, as everyone knows. So this comment is going to be a bit self-serving. I just want to put it out there. One of the things that we found, and it ties to something Taylor said, is students need a catalyst to engage. So many of these career centers have great resources, whether it's professionalism courses or let me help you with your resume or alumni connections. And especially as a freshman or sophomore, it feels difficult for the why should I be building my resume now, or why should I be sitting in the professionalism course. Taylor, did you feel like, and again, I know you talked about your micro internship, and whether it's the Parker Dewey one or any other kind of professional experience, did you feel like as a freshman, that was a catalyst to get you to engage with the career center and not just show up, but actually use the resources they were giving you?
You're saying the professionalism training?
Yeah, like when you, but because you were working on that project for J&J,
Right.
you feel like, gosh, from this project, I kind of feel like now I want to go get more professionalism, or did the professionalism training give you confidence to work on? I'm trying to figure out if there's a relationship or causation between that.
Yeah. I definitely think the professionalism kind of triggered my just inspiration for it, because I was only me and another girl, the only freshman in the course that semester. And so I think being surrounded by a bunch of juniors and seniors who were about to go off, and I think that's kind of what Rebecca was saying, that's kind of like we need to get our foot in the door first, you know, like that's kind of like the initial like response to it all. But I think like professionalism comes later and everything. But for me, like in my story, I think going into, you know, my internships, my interviews now, like that's been super helpful for me. But I mean, all of my peers that I was surrounded with that are going into their full-time jobs now, they were saying, oh, this is like the icing on the cake, you know, like this is like I got my foot in the door, I have my job, but I think this will help me going into the future. But I guess with my story, I think it kind of just inspired me, and just being surrounded by those people that were older than me. I guess that's the connection there. But yeah, that's kind of how I see it.
No, I think that's really, really helpful. And that's, again, everyone's story is different. Your story is so unique because you were involved as a freshman, now as a sophomore, but also being a student athlete, which again, Flory, I guess, goes to a question for you just from some of the prior conversations we've had. Like when you're thinking about building the programs that you're doing, how much are you focused on specific student populations? Are you very focused on reaching freshmen and sophomores versus juniors and seniors? Are you very focused on student athletes, or like any of those things come top of mind?
I think that again, like, and I feel like I'm always talking about COVID, right? But everything comes back to COVID. So I've worked with our internship program, our corporate internship program, since March of 22. Summer 22 was the first summer that we went back to an in-person internship program. We were virtual in 20 and 21. That has really changed over time since 22, where in 22, because that was our first in-person, we had students that were working remotely, they were working in person, and now it's slowly moving back to everybody is in person. So the last 2 summers we had no remote interns, and for that reason, it turns into, well, if you're an intern, the goal is to convert you into a full-time role, which means you will have to move to Milwaukee. Do you want to move to Milwaukee? And historically, the internship program focused on students at UW-Madison, at UW-Milwaukee, at MSOE, at Marquette University, because those are all of our local schools. When I came in 22, I was explaining to everyone that a lot of the students at Madison and Marquette are transplants. So like they're going home for the summer. Perhaps we should start focusing more on our local talent. Maybe we should be looking more toward the college access programs that are working in our community so that we can attract those Milwaukee students that are going away to school but coming home for the summer. And when I made that suggestion, um, the people were like, "That is brilliant," and I was like,
It
"Is
is
it
bro.
though?" Isn't that because I don't and to give everyone here context, I worked at Marquette for 20 years before I started at Northwestern Mutual. So my lens is always through a higher ed a lens. I have adult children, so I'm always thinking like, how would I hope somebody would deal with my kids if they were going into an office? But yeah, I mean, that's the very long answer to we're really focusing on Milwaukee homegrown students, but then also being very upfront with students that are not from Milwaukee to say, if you would like this to turn into a full-time role, if the opportunity is for this to turn into a full-time role, please understand that you'll be expected to relocate to Milwaukee. And let's talk about, so that goes back to my programmatic stuff that I'm doing here is, let me tell you about how awesome Milwaukee is. And let me tell you about all the reasons why people want to move to Milwaukee, want to stay in Milwaukee, and really helping students understand the benefits that being in a space like Milwaukee can bring.
And you probably can't use Laverne and Shirley references.
Yeah, I mean, Laverne, that's I last night we were talking about the Brady Bunch with a bartender, and he was like, "Who?" So, Laverne, Shirley, Brady Bunch, probably not.
Yeah. Anyway, all right, I digress. I'm showing my age. Rebecca, hearing what Flory said, I mean, what's the school's perspective? How are they responding to what Taylor's looking for, be it the exploration or the skill building, and balancing it with the needs of the employers, the being able to reach students from certain geographies, and again, supporting that career exploration, but also how do we find the right candidates?
I think it's all over the place. I think there are a lot of different ways in which schools are doing that. So on one hand, I do see, we have teams with employer relations and we have kind of a career advising unit. And sometimes those folks aren't sharing information back and forth. So that becomes really difficult because they'll hear needs from Flory and others, and that may not move over to the career advisors who are the face-to-face staff with students. So sometimes there's a gap. We do see career centers where that's much more integrated. We do see career centers that have more of a career communities advising model so that the entire focus for the career advisors is on specific sets of occupations. And in those models, we tend to see much more alignment with what industry is looking for, what are the skills and experiences students need to build, easier information integration into, I think, the career advising sessions and then the programming. So I think you just have a vast perspective on, or great variety of what employers can expect in terms of career centers. I do think that they're hungry for this information and they'll take whatever they can get. In terms of, how they could be better preparing for students, what's the feedback on the students that they are seeing and getting, how are they doing when they land there for internships and jobs? That's a lot of feedback career centers don't often get, and they'll survey employers, and my guess is Flory and others are getting tons of those kinds of surveys, and how many are you going to fill out, and you know what I mean? So it becomes difficult to have that feedback loop. And I think, one of the things that I talk about with career centers quite a bit is, instead of, this feels a little bit more transactional and less strategic. How do we move this into a place where we're integrating our employers into the career development process of our students from the time the students are getting on board through the end of time, so that the only interface that students have with employers is not the career fair or info sessions, but that it is much more meaningful. Employers are able to actually share tangible information about what people can do, how to do it, where to do it, what kinds of experiences matter most, participate in those experiences, bring the case studies to campus, engage in projects, work with faculty on project-based learning or experiential learning opportunities, right? Just be much more embedded in the process. And I think that does amazing for employer brands on campus, like outstanding ways in which to get students talking about your company and what it is that you do. So, I mean, I think it's a lot more time investment from the recruiting teams. So thinking about how to flex that in a way that meets the timelines of both the recruiting groups and the employer relations teams, career centers. How do you align that?
To be biased, I am not sure it needs to require that much more time when done correctly. I think it actually comes at time savings, and we have some data, but we can talk about that separately. But you brought up something that you could probably see me shaking over.
I see you dancing a little bit over there, Jeffrey.
Well, some of it is kind of standing. Like, I am a believer in experiential learning. I named our organization after Francis Parker and John Dewey. I am a believer. I'm a believer in work integrated learning. I know you are. You are a voracious writer on the topic. By the way, anyone that does not subscribe to Rebecca's newsletter needs to. I'll let you put the link in since I don't have it in front of me, but I'll let you do that later. We know the schools believe in it. How are there opportunities, and you were touching on this, for employers to almost leverage that, not just as the feel good, I'm giving back to the school or heavy lift or any of those other things of some of those programs, but as a core part of their recruiting effort, where they can be delivering experience or what the school values is experiential learning, but where a Flory says, this is helping me reach students or assess or build relationships.
Well, I think all the employers that I've seen that work in those spaces have usually walked out with really talented students that they've identified from watching them in action, right, and participating in action. I think that the challenge is how do you set those experiences up at the university so that it's easy to plug employers in, right? Because these things are can be pretty complex to set up. What is the project? Is the project appropriate? What's the right level for student? What's the timeline for this? When are people going to be, doing this? Is it a day? Is it a week? Is it across a semester? Is it in a course? Is it separate? Right? There's so many different considerations for how to set that up. And then thinking about how to align that with what's going on with students, what's going on with programming, what's going on with academic calendars, and if you're working with faculty, does it align with the course topic, right? There's a lot of things that have to kind of fit together. And so you need to create systems and processes and policies, I think, to be able to assess, right, is this employer the right fit? Is this the project that's the right fit? Who are the right students for this, so that we can move this together so everyone can be successful. You don't want to do this and let down your employers, and you don't want to do this and let down your students, right? And so really thinking about how do you put all of those pieces in place in a way that really just sets everyone up for success is so important. Well, and it's not simple.
Yeah. I'm not sure I would fully agree with you, but that's why we have different voices on this. I mean, what you just hit was one of the catalysts I saw from participating in the Capstone project, serve as an employer with a school. It was great, it was valuable, but it was a really heavy lift. Are there opportunities for lower stakes, lower risk, lower lift experiences, and that's really what we always try to focus on. But that's, again, it's a great point. It needs to be considered. It needs to be considered, and that weight of what is the cost relative to the benefit, and cost not just in financial, but time and effort and everything else.
Well, and I think on that, Jeffrey, I'll just add too, I mean, as someone who worked at a large institution like Wisconsin, and you just think about how much time it takes to put these types of things together and build a relationship so that you can execute the programs, and then you serve 20 students. And I can tell you right now, when I was working for the Dean of Liberal Arts, he'd be like, like that's, I mean, maybe great impact, but it's only 20 students. You still have another 21,000 to figure out, right? Like, the scaling is the biggest challenge in this.
I completely agree. And you throw on top of it the need to potentially get into sort of academic freedom and everything else. And then Flory, from your perspective, I don't know how much Northwestern Mutual does this. I mean, is Northwestern Mutual participating in co-ops and capstones and all of those things, like at the corporate level?
Not yet. I think we probably are headed in that direction. But given the turbulent economic times, it's hard to say what happens next, right? Like, I think there are a lot of opportunities. Marquette in particular is right up the block from where we are. They have a lovely student success center that has a huge career center. They've offered us to come anytime, do whatever we'd like, right? Like, so I think there are opportunities to think innovatively around how we engage with universities and in career center spaces. But it does all really depend on what comes next. And it's so uncertain right now.
Yeah, no, I again, I completely agree. I guess that's actually a good segue to Taylor. Because Taylor, I know you mentioned before the micro internships you did with Johnson & Johnson, and we're seeing some questions about student experience. I guess, can you share a little bit about what you were doing with J&J, what time of year, and how you really had it fit within your schedule as a star soccer player?
Yeah, so I did a market research internship at Johnson & Johnson. It was kind of towards the end of February, beginning of March, and I got the internship through Parker Dewey. It was kind of a 10-hour project, and I was kind of, like I said before, inspired by my professionalism training and kind of talking to my peers about it. And they were like, "Oh, like you're a student athlete." And yeah, my group that I was closest with in the training, you kind of like go through the course like with a few people, and a lot of them were athletes at Stetson as well. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, like you should do this." It's kind of hard, obviously, to get an established like long-term internship where you can, show up 5 days a week or for a certain number of hours each week when you're an athlete, just because of like the rigorous schedule. And so I was like, oh my gosh, this sounds great, and I ended up loving it. And so I did market research for them, and I kind of analyzed the social impact initiatives of their competing pharmaceutical companies, such as like Pfizer, GSK, and then I developed a comprehensive slide deck summarizing kind of the key findings, the program owner overviews, target audiences, and then I was able to kind of provide my recommendations for their STEM initiative. And I absolutely loved it. It was super like insightful to me, just because I wasn't really sure what I thought about market research, consumer research, but I ended up loving it. And so it's definitely something I'm thinking about kind of starting in. And if I could find an entry-level position in that area, I would absolutely love it. And I would have never known that I liked it if I didn't do the small internship. And I think it's honestly like, I think a lot of student athletes should definitely dive into it, because I know like my teammates I talk to all the time, a lot of them are business majors as well. And they're like, I just don't have time. I just don't know what to do. And I tell them about it, and they're like, that sounds awesome. And it's something like I learned so many skills through it, kind of just in like analytical skills. I realized like I do enjoy like diving into things like research, kind of just found out a little bit more about myself through just a 10-hour project. And so I think it's something that a lot of students should look into, especially busy ones like me. And I'm super thankful for it. And I want to do another one. I think that like doing another project and maybe a different skill set would also be super beneficial in the future. But yeah, I definitely loved it. So.
And what was interesting, or there was a lot interesting in there. One of the things that was particularly interesting is it was off cycle. It wasn't when J&J was on campus. It wasn't sort of tied to the career fair or anything else. It wasn't a replacement for those things, but they did it off cycle. And I know one of the things they were excited about was how to keep students engaged even when they weren't there.
Right.
But it also brings up something, again, Flory, a question for you, because something jumped out from what Taylor said, that she wasn't really considering that role or thinking about J&J or market research, or was unsure about it. I mean, Northwestern Mutual is one of the largest or most common presences in campus recruiting, but it tends to be, apologize if I'm using the wrong term, the field offices or the local offices recruiting for the financial reps. That's not what you're focused on. Can you talk a little bit about how you're using some of these off-cycle things, whether it's during internships or otherwise, to sort of build that brand exploration or brand awareness and encourage the type of career exploration Taylor was alluding to?
Yeah, my brilliant idea again, because I'm so brilliant, was really focusing on our local high schools and getting more awareness, more reputation, visibility, more just like explaining what Northwestern Mutual is to high school students. Um, I when I started here in March of 22, had no idea that the corporate internship program even existed. I worked at Marquette for 20 years right up the block. I'm born, raised, lived in Milwaukee my entire life. I assumed that everybody in this building sold life insurance. I had no idea that it was other things that were happening here. And so not only did I not know, but then when I told my friends and family that I had gotten a job at Northwestern Mutual, they were like, "You don't sell life insurance." And I was like, "No, you don't understand. There's this whole other thing, right?" So working really hard to educate folks around what Northwestern Mutual is, helping people to identify our logo and recognizing that if you see that logo outside of Milwaukee, that it is a field office and that those are the people that are selling life insurance. But the office in Milwaukee, the downtown building that's tall right by the Summerfest grounds, are actuary and data science and human resources and marketing, right? So helping students understand the differences, which then like weirdly turns into me having conversations with school counselors about life insurance and how important it is if you have a child to get life insurance for them because they don't have to have a medical exam. Like, and then people are like, "You should sell life insurance." I'm like, "No, I should not." So I think that if we can have these conversations earlier, um, from my experience and from being a mom, if you overwhelm young people with information, they tend to shut down. And so these sessions that I'm advocating for are 15-minute sessions. Bring all of the high school juniors into the gym. Let me talk about Northwestern Mutual and then say after that 15 minutes, if you'd like to know more about life insurance, I'll be back in 3 weeks. So come back. And then after that session saying, if you'd like to know more about the careers that we have to implement, maintain, process life insurance policies, come back. We piloted it last year with one of our top Milwaukee Public High Schools, started out with a group of 300, but had 40 that were interested and wanted to learn more and came back. That way, we're sending high school students off to universities thinking about data science, thinking about actuary, thinking about the majors that really will help them succeed before the career fair that's in the middle that they go to in the middle of their junior year when it's too late for them to change their major and pivot into a space because data science now sounds interesting to them, right? Also just having the ability to have conversations with students about what we spoke about earlier in this conversation. It's not just about the classes. It's not just about the major. It has a lot to do with the experiences that you've had in life that are transferable into other spaces and being able to communicate that on a resume, being able to communicate that in an interview. So really having all of the breadth of information, but the people that I work with also laugh at me because I always tell them that we have to find the cool people here. Because young people don't want to listen to old people. They want to listen to cool people. And so trying to find the people in the building that can connect with young people so that it's exciting and it's interesting. They don't talk too long and everything that you have fits on the phone. Like stop sending 500-page emails. Students don't read that, right? Like just being more relevant, being more connected, being more relationship driven, being more kind. I talk to you all the time, Jeffrey, about being kind, right? Like let's
Wait, to be clear, you're not telling me I am not kind.
no.
I don't want
It's in
people
our
thinking
conversations, our mutual conversations about being a decent human being out in the world, right? Like how we encourage others to be kind.
but that's because we think like dogs.
Yes, dogs, yes, in volleyball, right? Like the things. But yeah, so, I think it's important for us to tap into the human side of this and like really think about how we were talking about this yesterday, Jeffrey. If your child came into somebody's office, how you would hope that somebody would treat them, and us treating other people's children that way, right? And helping people wrap their brains around that more.
So I want to do a very, very quick speed round before I get back to a couple other questions for Rebecca and Taylor, because you said something, Flory, that I know Rebecca feels strongly about, and I'm also interested in Taylor's perspective. You talked about sending students emails, 500-page emails or even short emails. Rebecca, thoughts on sending students emails as part of campus recruiting?
I have a lot to say on this.
That's why.
I'm gonna do speed round. One of the number one complaints I hear from students is that they get emails that feel like mass communications to many, many students that are not tailored, that did not use their name, that did not even recognize maybe the major, the academic journey the student's on, and they will just mute you. They will not do that. They will not engage. And so I think, right, really thinking about how do we, if we're going to use email, right, how do we do that in a way that's meaningful, relevant, and timely for students? And I think I know that's challenging to do when you're trying to do that on a large scale, but there are tools that allow you to do that. But I think students are used to, I mean, this is a group of students that has had everything personalized for them. Every Instagram and TikTok, any advertisement that's come across their desk, right? Netflix, like everything's personalized to them. And so we can't send sort of these generic communications anymore. It just doesn't work. And I'm sure Taylor has a very good perspective on this, and I'd love to hear it too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really, very well said. I think students now, don't even look at their emails as much as we should in the first place. And then I guess like for me, I kind of connected to my like recruiting process in a way because, okay, if I received an email from a coach saying, oh, like we really liked this specifically about you as a player, like please come to our camp, pay this money, come to our camp, as opposed to a coach that just emails me, oh, like just come to our camp, whatever. Like I'm gonna go to the school, obviously, that like specifically said that they liked something about me because that's worth my money and my time. And so I think it all just goes back to tailoring specifics. And I think, like I said, like email's hard enough. So I think that just as a student, and I'm guilty of that as well. If I just get a mass email, I'm like, okay, and then it kind of sends it to my junk. And so I think that's, yeah, 100%. I agree with everything. So.
And you can read through the BS of where they just used a token or whatever to put in your name or your major or your school. Like,
right.
Is that correct?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, even when it's tailored to you, like you kind of know because your name is highlighted, your major is highlighted, so that's kind of where they input differences, and so
Well, yeah, I mean, and it's baffling to me that how much is being spent both in time and money to blast emails at college students. Okay, that was a digression based upon something Flory said. Flory, I know we've talked a little bit about hiring managers and how hiring managers want to do stuff on their own. They like engaging with the college students or going to their campus and whatever. As we think about wintertime and off-cycle recruiting, like how are there ways you're thinking about giving hiring managers still those opportunities and experiences, but in a way that you still have control and it's still adding value to your work?
So there are areas of the business that have very specific requirements. They have very specific hiring needs, a very specific student that they're looking for. We deputize those hiring managers to attend the career fairs in our stead, and provide them with all, the tools and resources that we would have, so that we're allowing them or helping them to weed through the students and set a very realistic expectation, right? So I am a huge proponent for being very straightforward with students and not setting not saying that we have something that we don't have. And so let's be honest, right? Let's say these are the very specific skills, courses, whatever it is that we're looking for, and allow the business to say, like, you don't have the things that we're looking for, right? Um, that's the big one. That's the biggest thing is like just allowing those spaces. If they want to be that particular, then they can have those conversations with the students themselves. Um, Outside of that, I think we we want to be very honest. That's all I keep saying. I keep telling everyone around here, like, let's be straightforward. Let's give the students the information that they need and allow them to and trust them to make the decisions and choices based on the information that we're providing them with. And so that's my strategy, let's go
Yeah.
do this thing.
Well, it's one of the questions we used to get a lot about the value of the micro internship is even if there's not necessarily a job or summer internship at the end of the rainbow, do students still value it? And Taylor, again, from your experiences, even if you knew that J&J wasn't having you do this project as an audition for a full-time role, which I don't think they were, like, was it still valuable for you?
Oh, 100%. I mean, like I said before, I discovered a skill that I really found interesting. And so, I mean, it's all about discovery and finding what you like and don't like. And I think that's the value of those like smaller internships that
Yeah.
don't really don't I mean lead to a full-time commitment or something big.
And I would add that implementing a rotational program internally is a really heavy lift. Like that's something that it's hard to maintain. It's hard to do it well. And the micro internships really do give you that opportunity to test out several areas of a business without the company having to orchestrate and maintain it. So that's just another 2 cents of mine.
No, and in the same way, again, when that hiring manager in marketing or that professional in marketing wants to give a project to a student at Marquette, they can do it without getting in your way or conflicting with the other stuff you're doing, but still adding value for you, still
Correct.
helping reach a student like Taylor and get insights on her skills. One last question, and then I want to get to the questions that were in the chat and came beforehand. The first one I'm going to give to Taylor to start with, but again, want to hear input from Rebecca and Flory. Taylor, question from the audience. The most impactful way for employers to engage with you? Is it the career fair? Is it tabling events? Is it networking nights? Is it things like micro internships or other experiences? What's most impactful for you?
I mean, I think they're all pretty beneficial depending on how the individual takes it. For me, the career fair was it was great for me. I think showing up prepared with my resume, professionally, and then just kind of interacting with the employers. Obviously, when I first went to the career fair in the spring, I mean, I wasn't really marketable. I was only a freshman, but I think it was really good for me to just kind of have those conversations and see what it's like when that time comes. And then I'm also on the business ethics case competition team, and we actually flew to San Francisco in the spring, and we were able to present our entire like DEI presentation. It was a really cool experience to a group of employers, and I think that was also a great like networking experience for me. And because I mean that was just real world experience, textbook. And so I think. Like the question said, like specific networking nights, student club events. I think if you get involved with the right club and go to the right places, I think it can be super beneficial.
Quick follow-up. You
Mhm.
said you went to the career fair as a freshman.
Yeah.
What were the follow-ups like from the company since then?
I think for me, I mean, obviously I was given like multiple handouts. I mean, there's not much they can say or I can say, but I mean, for me, like I just did more research into what I would want to kind of apply for, or like those conversations I would want to have in a few years. And so I think for me, like just getting those handouts, taking them home, connecting with people on LinkedIn, the people that I spoke to was kind of just my next steps after that. So.
But have any of them been doing anything? And please don't name names, but again, don't want to say anything negative, but like, were any of them doing anything that you thought, wow, they're doing a tremendous job showing me how interested they are in me? I took the time to come to the career fair booth. They're keeping me warm, if you will.
I wouldn't say anything really stood out to me. I mean, I gave my resume, my business card, and it was kind of, mutual. They gave me their handout back, and we had a little conversation, but I wouldn't think anything really stood out to me or I felt, very, I don't know, interested in, if that makes sense.
Flory, does that stress you out hearing that?
No, it confirms what I already know. It's like,
No,
and that's part of why I feel so strongly about this high school thing, is because it gives us an opportunity to meet students where they are, while building a relationship that can be pulled through their time, to say, so so we're asking them to give us their email address. We're asking them to give us their information if they're interested and they want to stay in touch. And then we can say, hi, it's Flory again. And when I say it's Flory again, they see my face. It's not some like random void of email land that came to them, right? So there's an attachment. And so much of this conversation I've been hearing, it's quality over quantity. That the better you can connect and engage and build relationships, the higher your chances are, the higher the likelihood is that you're going to maintain that relation or maintain that connection with that student.
And that's a little bit where I was pushing you about saying, does it stress you out? The fact that someone like Taylor, smart, hardworking student athlete, had taken the time to come, again, not to yours, but to your career fair booth and talk to someone there. The fact that someone at Northwestern Mutual wasn't necessarily, like, doesn't it feel like a lost opportunity that they weren't continuing to develop that relationship in the way you described?
I wish I feel like you should ask this question to somebody who's more of a career fair fan. I'm just like not a career fair fan. I feel like there are so many people in a small space having very high level conversations. It's hard for you to keep track of who's who. It's not even just the employer, but the student too, right? So like, I know I had a conversation with this person, unless you're really, really interested and you really want a job there, you're not going to remember who you talked to about what at the end of the fair, right? And so my passion lies in like making connections with professors in relevant courses where we can get into the classroom and have conversations with students one-on-one that way. I also feel very strongly about utilizing relationships that students have already built with trusted humans in their life. So like, that's why we lean on the college access programs, right? Like you have a student who is admitted into All in Milwaukee, which is a college access program. They have an advisor here. They have a relationship built with that advisor. They trust that advisor. Now that advisor is saying, you should talk to Flory.
Yep.
I'm a person that their trusted human is telling them to talk to. I'm not just some random person that sent them an email. I feel like this generation, this group of young people that we have right now, values that more than the like the pen that we hand out at a career fair that they throw in a bag and then lose eventually.
By the way, I completely agree with you. I've such mixed feelings about career fairs that they're different than even when I went to school. Like, it's let me hand the resume, let me hear the same talking points that are on your website. I think they could be incredibly valuable to support the type of exploration Taylor is describing, but it's the execution thereof. I mean, Rebecca, you've been involved with at least, I mean, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I agree with everything that's been shared already. I mean, I think that these can feel like pretty transactional experiences, high stress for students. Very anxious. I mean, I was at Wisconsin, we created a room for students to go first before they went and talked to employers so we could kind of pump them up, right? So students are kind of high anxiety, maybe not their best selves. they wait in line to talk to somebody, they finally get in line, they talk to somebody, and feels very transactional and short. There's no like career exploration really happening. I mean, like very minimal, I would say. And I think, I think it's hard, right? Then students walk away with an impression of the company. That's the brand that they take away from that. And I think there are better ways. We used to do, and I think other universities have done this too, where you do career fair prep nights where you bring employers in to help prepare students for the fair a couple days before. And wow, that is like meaningful, right? They're telling the students, we don't need your 30-second pitch. Like we don't need you to do that, but this is what you could do, and that would be better. Or let me take a look one more time at your resume and make sure you didn't miss anything. Just how do we practice having a conversation with real recruiters, not with staff pretending to be recruiters, right? Like, so those are the things that I think are really meaningful. And then those are the folks who show up at the fair, right? Like you get to see them again. So I think like thinking about other ways to involve employers, again, as part of that career development experience and not just funneling everyone to the fair, because.
Oh my God.
Right?
Yeah. Again, I completely agree. I think everything's viewed transaction, living in a bucket without realizing how all the pieces fit together. So we did not get to all the questions. I'm sorry. We have more. Happy to try to hit them in follow-ups. Again, very quickly, Taylor, we'll start with you. One piece of advice you would have for the employers on the call, one piece for the schools.
I think we were just saying employers like building that connection. I think like students now, like Rebecca said earlier, so used to like personalization, tailor specific. And so I think like really making effort to grow a connection and then like following up with that same person would go a long way. And then I think with schools, just continue to provide students with the opportunities to connect like one-on-one. I think like you said, I definitely agree with all the mixed feelings about the career fairs because it is scary to just go up as a freshman and just introduce yourself and try and learn. And so I think like more experiences just outside of settings like that for students to interact would be super beneficial. So.
Love it. Flory, piece of advice for employers and schools.
I'll say it again, just be kind, right? Like, let's try as employers, let's try to put ourselves in the students' shoes and like be more mindful of how stressful it is to go to, like, it's stressful for us. We get nervous going to career fairs. So like, and we're adults. These are young people whose brains are not fully developed yet. Like, let's give them some grace, right? So that's my advice to employers, to schools. I would say like try to find innovative ways to create excitement around career centers, because the students that go to career centers are the ones that would go anyway. So you have to find ways to get the students that don't know anything about a center, the ones that are afraid of career centers, the ones that think career centers aren't going to help them. We have to find innovative ways to get students excited about going to and utilizing this very valuable source that's available to them for free, that you don't get when you graduate from college anymore.
It's that catalyst. It's that catalyst. What's driving Taylor or whoever to show up? Although Taylor was anyway. Rebecca, schools and employers.
Okay, I'm going to start with employers. I'm going to say we have schools are under a lot more pressure than they've been. We have these new federal accountability requirements. We have a lot of new state requirements with regards to internships and work-based learning, and universities need you. They need you to help them create opportunities for students to gain these kinds of experiences. And for a lot of reasons that we already talked about today, that can be very, very beneficial to you as companies. But it also requires you to kind of step into spaces that are maybe outside your normal patterns of business. And so what are ways in which you can do that? I think that's one thing that I would say they need you. So if you could step into that space, and at the same time, career centers, all of this pressure actually creates a lot of opportunity for you to make the case to also make change, right? How could you create an experiential learning initiative or work-based learning initiative within your institution so that students can get more of these experiences that they do need, that they can be more competitive in the job market today, right? So I would think about the moment that we're in between the challenges of the labor market, the new accountability requirements, the questioning of the ROI, the AI taking jobs, right? How do you pull that together and make a case for the kinds of change that your students need from you today? So I'll leave it there.
I love that. I will add two quick mine from this conversation. First, for the career centers of the colleges to build upon, I think, Rebecca, what you just brought up. Take a look at the initiative being driven by Strata, JP Morgan, and ASU. It's a work integrated learning program. It has 8 colleges and universities participating. It was announced earlier this year. They are doing really, really interesting things, trying to tie work integrated learning with career centers to create more of these experiences. I'm very excited to see what comes of that research and that program. Second, for the employers, it doesn't need to be hard. And again, Rebecca, I completely agree that the traditional models of experiential learning or project-based or everything else historically has been a heavy lift. I dropped the PDF in the chat. It's something that we put together that's saying, oh, you're going to a career fair. Here's how to keep students warm. Or you're going to do an on-campus class presentation. Here's how to stay engaged with Taylor after, or drive interest. Think about these low stakes, low lift opportunities that are out there. Yeah. And again, we're obviously happy to help. Taylor, Rebecca, Flory, the 3 of you are amazing. Sorry we went over by 3 minutes. You guys are great. I know I learned a ton from all 3 of you. I have pages of notes here. You guys are incredible. For all the participants, thanks, or all the attendees, thanks so much for joining. Sorry we didn't get to all of the questions. Please always feel free to reach out to us. Sign up for Rebecca's newsletter. Follow Taylor's soccer team, and buy your life insurance from Northwestern Mutual. Have a wonderful
Thank you.
rest of the week.
Thank you.
Bye.